We had about almost 40,000 people in person. You know, I think in the last 12 months, there was like almost 8,000 or 9,000 salvations and just things that we never thought possible. And so, yeah, I often, honestly, every weekend, I think I stand in the back of a room at one of the locations and just go, oh my gosh, how do I get to be a part of this?
Yeah.
Why did God let us experience all of this? And then, you know, what's happening here is every bit as exciting. Like, I mean, you guys have to have that same feeling. You have to stand in the back of the room and just go, what?
Afterthoughts podcast, episode 89 with Shawn Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
In person.
Let's go, Shawn. Let's go,
You've
man.
seen him on
You
a
finally made
screen when we did a podcast. How long ago was that? Month or two? 2 months ago?
Yeah.
Shawn zoomed in with us.
It was
But
very well
today-
thought out.
Oh yeah,
Very planned.
We planned that
We
for
prepped that
months.
for a
About
long
30
time.
seconds before.
Yeah, just
Oh,
like
that's what I
this.
meant.
But Shawn is here in person with us today.
And this
Ryan,
is a,
how
this
are
is
you
a
feeling
bucket
about
list
that?
thing for you, Shawn.
It's good to have you, Shawn.
Yeah.
It is a bucket list thing.
Uh-huh.
This is
For-
like it's kind of hard to know like where your life goes from here. You know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like you kind of are
it's
hitting
the
this
Amalfi
peak.
Coast, the Garden Tomb, and Afterthoughts.
Yeah,
You've
that's-
always said that.
Yeah.
You've
It's-
always
the
said
order
that.
has been very tough for me.
That's right.
But I always knew I could buy a ticket to the others. This
Right.
one, because of the invite and the short list, is tough.
You can't
It's
buy
tough.
a
Can't put a
ticket
price on
into
it.
the studio.
No.
No.
You sure can't.
But it did shock me that Doug puts all the guests in a slightly shorter chair
I
than
know.
his.
He's
So
he's
he
been
feels
doing
a
that
little
for years. It's a
superior.
whole
He's got a
power
little bit
thing.
of a power trip on the podcast.
Yeah.
We just deal with it.
Do you know how many times I've ran into Red Rockers like at the Domain or Park Meadows Mall, and I've been told, "Oh, you're shorter than I thought."
Oh, bro, is that the
Dude,
worst?
I
The
hate
worst.
it. I'm like,
And you just wonder when
I'm-
people make a comment, you're like, why would you think to say that? Like, there's no way I walk away from that feeling better about myself.
I'm like, I'm
Right.
5'10", man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And later that day, they told someone in their family, I saw Pastor Doug. What'd you say to him? I told him he was short.
It's really short. Really short.
Oh, cool.
yeah, I'm 16
Great.
foot 9 on the screen, but that's because it's
It's literally a screen.
so yeah. So I, every little
Yeah,
every little bit
listen,
helps.
I mean, if you go back to
So,
back,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is unfair.
It's right there.
whatever I can do to serve you, you know what I mean?
It's right
About
there.
half an inch.
Guys, I'm actually about 4.5 inches taller
Oh,
than
it's
Doug.
all about Doug here. We have a lot, I mean, potentially millions of viewers that aren't even affiliated with Red Rocks. They're just obsessed with this podcast.
Right.
So for those of you that aren't part of the Red Rocks circle, Shawn is the senior pastor of all of Red Rocks Church,
Yep.
runs the whole ship.
Yep.
How's that going?
We're sinking. This little life raft over here called the Austin location is me just hoping it works.
Just trying stuff.
Yep.
Does it
was-
get more complicated or less complicated as the
when I
church
told
grows?
the guys in Denver I'm going to Austin for a few days, that was them going, "You've given up completely."
Yeah.
haven't you?"
Yeah.
Yeah. People come down here when they've given up. That's what we have found. Yes.
That it worked for us. We did that 7 years ago.
You also let us plant this church here in Austin.
Mhm. After a lengthy interview process.
Yes.
Mhm.
Ryan and I had to go through, Doug was already working at the church.
Yep.
Ryan and I had to go through a gauntlet. We had dinner with Shawn.
We showed up on the walk
And that
over
was
there. We were like, when do I drop that? Like, I just graduated from seminary, like the whole resume. Here's what I did at a church in California. And then we show up and you're like, so you guys in?
You guys want to do this? We're like, do you want to do this?
I remember you were like, it's like, what are some of the most important things that we could focus on?
Yeah.
And I was like,
He's got his notepad out.
yeah, I'm like,
Ready, man.
you guys want to go tell people about Jesus? You feel like you got the energy?
You just do that.
Let's do that.
But that was
We have done
just
it.
a dinner in
Yeah.
downtown Littleton.
It just clicked.
We just made that decision.
Yeah.
It just felt
And-
right.
And it hasn't fallen apart yet. So
It has not only not fallen apart.
It's your discernment,
like
Shawn.
what you
That's
guys
right.
are experiencing here is so rare.
Yeah.
Like there are church planners around the country
Mm.
going, what's the secret sauce? What have they done?
Yeah.
It's got to be the brilliance behind the scenes. And then you do one of these podcasts and you go,
Can't be that.
It's not that.
Well, it's got to be God. God's the only thing left on the list.
Yeah, we can't even afford ceilings on our offices, as you can. But I'm serious. I hired a guy I paid him like I don't know, $2,000 to put up all these walls. And he said, do
build
you guys want
offices from
ceilings? I said, how much are ceilings? He goes, it's probably $4,000 for drop ceilings. And I said, oh, we can't do that.
Yeah.
No, we
No.
won't be doing
It's kind of a
that.
convertible
So-
office concept, so we
yeah.
can talk to each other really
There's
easily. which is
nowhere to
nice.
go up here. If you need to take a private call, there's a closet over there, and that's where we go take private calls.
Yeah,
And that's full all the time.
All the time,
And you're just knocking like, I need to make a phone call
Pretty great.
it's going
because I
good.
can't have any conversation in my office without everybody hearing it. So
Our first building, at the theme park,
Yeah.
we didn't even have air conditioning in the auditorium.
Dude.
And I mean, it's basically a barn, and so the summers,
Oh,
literally, we used to pass out little paper bulletins. No one read them. They immediately folded them into fans.
Yeah.
and they're just
Immediately
in this
fan
the
it.
whole
It's-
time.
did you ever stop people and ask them like, why are you still coming to this church?
Oh, 100%.
There's
and
no air conditioning.
Every
There's
single
bugs everywhere.
every week in the summer, I'd be like, guys, I am as mad as you are.
Yeah.
And I'm actually hotter because these lights are bright.
Mm.
And I'm like, as soon as somebody wants to pay for air conditioning, I would love for us to install it.
I think one
And
of
not
the
one person over
Nobody
10 years
stepped
went,
up.
I got
I
you.
got this.
Yeah, that's
we've
that's right.
dropped that hint
Don't worry
multiple
about this,
times.
guys. Hope your stocks do well. Good. That's great.
Yeah.
Dude,
I'd
one
like
of the
to-
one of the
oh,
worst
yes.
feelings, by the way, when you're preaching and you know it's not going well, but then you're hot and you're sweating,
Oh.
and then you look out and everybody else is fanning, and you're like, they're miserable.
They're
That-
wearing
that's
long
the,
sleeves.
Dear
I'm-
Lord, how long
yeah.
is he going to talk? Sign.
You're like, I'm halfway. Oh no.
Awful.
Yeah.
That's tough.
That's yep.
Not that it's
Uh,
ever happened to me, but
Mhm.
it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Um,
We can talk about it later.
So last week, Greg was on here, who does not use the internet. It was an amazing episode. If you missed it, go listen to that. Watch that. But Greg did some shout outs at the beginning.
Hmm.
He just had a notepad of shout outs. So I'd like to, in honor of Greg, do a new segment called Shout Outs,
Okay.
where we each
Shout-outs
get
with
to just
Sean.
shout out whoever we want. Shout outs
Yeah.
with Sean.
Of course.
Shout outs with
Sean
Sean.
outs.
Yeah.
So,
Sean outs. I will.
Sean, first, I'm going
Yes.
to tee you up to
Okay.
give a shout out to your family. Give us the roster of the Johnson family.
Jill, wife of 26 years.
Dang.
Ethan is 22, newly graduated from Southeastern University. He's now pursuing his master's online, and he is the youth pastor at our Littleton campus.
Yeah.
One of the
And-
smartest guys I've ever talked to.
He's a stud.
Theologically, he's brilliant.
Got his life more together than any of us.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then Austin is 20. He's home for the summer. He's going to Grand Canyon University. He's working at the church. He loves making music. Like he just
Oh,
loves
cool.
producing music.
Nice.
And so anytime you go in his room, it's like a little DJ set up there.
That's
He'll have
awesome.
his, and it's right next to our room. So when he's home for the summer,
Sweet.
I listen to
That's
EDM
cool.
music
Yeah.
all summer.
That's fun.
So he's working at the church and at a golf course this summer. And then Ashton, our 16-year-old, just finished his sophomore year of high school.
Yep.
And basketball is the only thing on his mind.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
We were at Sean's house last year playing a game called Jump 21. We'll do a whole episode to explain how to
Yeah,
play Jump
very
21
fun.
sometime.
Mm-hmm.
And we're, getting on in our years, so we're struggling out there. And then Ashton comes out in flip-flops and just beat all of us.
It
very
was
frustrating. So shout
clear
out to Ashton.
very quick that he was at a
and then
different
you
level.
have pets.
We have pets that I'm willing to give away at any moment. We have what are the big bulldogs? Just regular bulldogs?
English bulldogs?
English bulldog. We
Yeah.
have an English bulldog that Jimmy Rollins gave us.
Okay.
And it's actually really, really funny. It was sad funny, but we had a dog for a long time that died. That was the sad part. If you like him.
Sad for Jill.
So then we got a rebound dog online, and it was like this purebred, whatever it is that you'd never heard of. And my sister and my wife flew somewhere to get this dog,
man.
brought it back, and it ended up it had so many problems.
Oh, no.
And it ended up having some sort of brain issue and died. It was awful.
Jeez.
And so Jill starts praying. I don't know this. Jill starts praying, God, if you want us to have a dog, you have to give us the right dog. Well, I don't know that she's praying about this. A week later, Jimmy Rollins calls and he's like, I got this English bulldog that won't get along with our other bulldog. Will you take it? So to Jill, of course, it was an answer of prayer.
Right.
Well, this is during COVID when it's hard. You can't
Oh my
fly
gosh.
bulldogs
Right.
usually anytime because of their snouts and whatever. It's hard, whatever.
Yeah. Because
So
they
this-
can't breathe ever.
They can't breathe. Yeah. So they
Poor
pay
design.
someone to drive this dog across the country, and this dog is in our house for like 60 seconds. And Jill's like, "This was not from God. This was not from God."
It's the enemy.
And so to compound the problem, we now also have a French bulldog.
Oh, good. That's how you do it.
Yep.
If your dog's not working out, you get another dog.
Yes.
That's right.
Oh,
Okay,
you didn't
that's
trade
good
dogs.
advice.
You just
No, we have
that's why. Okay.
because someone told Jill that if you have two dogs, that's better.
Right.
And it's obviously not.
yeah.
No,
It's just
of course.
twice
Of
the
course.
problem.
Right.
So we have
Correct.
2 dogs that I am very willing to give away.
Okay.
Are you
Well,
willing to trade dogs?
if you want Shawn's dogs, comment below.
Yep.
And we'll send them to you.
Yep.
Okay. So we got the family shout out, and then we'll come back to you if you want to shout somebody else out. You can shout out anyone you want. Doug, give a shout out.
Shout out to my wife, Sam,
Okay.
who watches every single
Yeah.
Afterthoughts
She's obsessed
episode.
with this podcast.
She's
Oh,
obsessed with it.
Nice.
And she just can't get enough of my jokes.
Yeah.
And so when I'm gone, she misses them. And
Wow.
so this podcast is always on all over our house, on every screen. And Sam, I love you
Wow.
very much.
Great job, Doug.
Yeah, thank
Ryan,
you.
a shout out from you.
Yeah, I want to shout out Threethan.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
He's right there.
Good
Just
job,
behind the scenes.
Threethan.
He's the guy
Oh,
that just
man.
makes all this work.
He's a stud.
Nice.
Do you want to give a shout out?
Yeah, actually, I want to give a shout out to Mackenzie because I know she's not listening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We have a problem on our staff that none of them listen
of
to our
them listen.
podcast.
No.
And I don't know if you want to say anything and address that. Maybe coming from you, they'll care.
Because it means nothing coming from us.
Apparently not.
Yeah, no.
That's funny.
Kayla, do you have a shout out?
Yeah, I'll shout out Ryan.
Yes.
There we
Wow. You guys could have literally shouted out anyone in the world.
No. We like to keep it.
All right. Well, I'm going to shout out Shane Gillis because we met him last night.
Ah, we did.
Yeah,
meet Shane.
sure
We
did.
did.
We met Shane
Congratulations.
Gillis last
Along
night.
with who else?
Caleb Presley and Glennie Balls. We met all
Yes.
3 of them.
That's right.
It's a highlight of a lifetime. And
You
shout
were
out to my family, which matters
So
more.
excited.
Yeah.
Very excited.
And you said starstruck. I don't think it was, you weren't starstruck. You were, I've just never seen you that happy in your entire life. And I was at your wedding.
Just stop right there.
Okay, yeah.
Let's just cut that off right there.
And
It was
confident.
very cool.
You're like, well, there's Caleb, so I'm going to go hang out with him.
Yeah, of
Definitely.
course.
Yes,
Yes.
of course.
Absolutely. Those are the 3 funniest people to me.
yeah.
Yeah.
So to get to meet all of them, I
Uh-huh.
greatly respect comedy.
The best line was we told Caleb we're pastors, and he just looks at us and he goes, "I know what you guys do. You say you're about to land the plane. That means you have 20 minutes left."
Yep.
But then he was like, my dad was a pastor. My
Yeah, it
stepdad
was
was a
super
pastor.
He got it.
He was
But-
awesome.
Shane's buddies, who he does his podcast with, came to
Came to Red Rocks.
Red Rocks
That's right,
a
they
couple
did.
weeks
They
ago.
Talked about it on their podcast. Talked about Doug.
They did. And it was the greatest thing I've ever
Yeah.
heard in my life. So thank you guys. I wish Shane had come though.
Maybe he will now that
He
we're
will.
best
Maybe.
friends.
You never know.
Him and I are.
We
I may or
text-
may
are
not have
close.
snuck a picture for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
All right, Kayla.
Hey.
So, Shawn, the highlight of every guest's experience
Sure.
here is a segment called Questions with Kayla.
Okay.
And I think she asked you some maybe last time through a screen, but
so.
doing it in person, it's just different.
Much
Getting
different.
to
Totally.
see Kayla there,
Technology.
asking you a question.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
So-
sure we had to edit out some of the answers.
Probably so. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Just because it was too theologically deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People, you know,
Too
the-
spiritual.
People,
Yeah,
too
yeah,
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kayla, what you got today? And welcome back to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me back.
Yes.
It's been a while. It's been a week.
Yep.
Okay, so I think I asked you guys this like early on in the podcast career that we have going.
Career.
But-
Thank you for saying. I like that.
It's quite the career.
It's a generous term.
But
Yes.
this is also like mainly for Shawn, but you guys can chime in if you want. If you weren't a pastor, what would you be doing? Or what would you love to do?
Can I ask a quick follow up? Are there limitations? Like, are we still
Can we play in the NBA?
our abilities, or can we just choose anything we want?
Your abilities.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Okay.
very limiting.
I actually have
Pastor.
That's very limiting, Caleb.
one. It is, yeah. No imagination here. No fantasy world.
Okay.
Realistic.
Yep.
Okay, so another shout out to Kim Cathcart,
Yes.
who used to work at Red Rocks Church, did sports ministry and youth in Denver, and a
The
great
Rocky
friend.
Road.
Great friend who we full circle. He was in Austin this past weekend.
Yep.
We got dinner after the 6 p.m.
From the Better Life podcast.
And yes, and
Kim
I have a vivid memory of being in my office at the Lakewood campus upstairs on a Sunday during one of the services, and me and Cam are up there.
Mm.
And we're having a conversation about hypothetically what would it look like if we stopped doing ministry and we did real estate investing and we
Yeah.
moved to Maui.
Yeah.
And we probably dreamed for like an hour. It was just fun. It was kind of, can you imagine if we ever did that? And a year later, Cam did that.
Yeah, you did.
And then we got to see him a few nights ago, and he was giving us the full update. He lives in Maui, and he is just absolutely crushing it
Yeah.
and owns, I don't know, 50 to 100 properties or something like that, and walks on the beach every single morning with his kids. And
He's not happy. His
in
life-
another life,
His life's
Cam.
terrible.
there's times Usually it's when I'm sermon prepping and I'm like about to quit.
Yeah.
For
I know
the
that spot.
1,000th time. I'm like, why do I do this? Why do I like this? I don't need this.
But you know, people will have negative feedback and
Oh,
comments
that's
on
good.
YouTube
Yeah.
and troll you.
But
So
if you
got
make
that.
great points and give great action steps, they won't do them.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah,
Some
there's
new
that,
trolls,
though.
new trolls recently for our podcast and our sermons. Welcome,
yeah?
welcome to the trolls. Good to have you guys.
Are they creative trolls? No.
Oh.
Nah.
No.
Bummer.
So, but you know, you can wear that shirt. You can't do the Maui life, but you can wear a shirt that reminds you of it, man.
If I can wear a shirt
So
that
you're
has a wave.
You're
So I
basically
kind of feel like I'm in Hawaii.
Yeah.
You and
You
Cam
know?
are basically doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this does the same thing for your psyche and your soul and your health as being on the actual beach does, as wearing a t-shirt. So I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Just to give an update on my life.
Yeah. Seems like Doug's doing well. Sean, what would you do?
Yeah.
Well, before I get into that, I
Comment below your prayer for
just
Doug.
to help Doug's heart a little bit. He told me this week that he's man, my backyard's amazing. I believe you said there was a scorpion. Was there a scorpion in your yard or something like that?
There was a scorpion
And you
and,
found
a
scorpions
giant
here?
centipede.
Up where he lives in Georgetown, they have more of that. The critters.
Well, I had the honor of sitting
It's
on
real
Cam's
Texas.
porch in Maui last year, and it might be the greatest ocean view I've ever seen in my life. And I thought, you can't be that funny
No.
and that good at life.
No. Yeah.
And
It's
he
not
is.
right. It's
He
not right,
is,
man.
man.
Yeah.
And he's a great dad. I was listening to him talking about being a dad. I'm like, you're my new like hero, I guess, when it comes to being a dad. So, but yeah, his ocean view. And then we were FaceTiming last week. You were on your back porch and there was just a few deer sleeping.
Dude,
and I said,
Colorado
I've got
summers,
a scorpion
man.
right here. So I don't know which is more majestic.
Yeah.
But
But at least it's really hot.
yeah.
summer.
Wow.
To answer your question, Kayla,
We got there.
You need to get control of this podcast, Kayla.
Broke control.
I oddly enough, when I was in college, studied pre-med, and I thought that I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. I played sports growing up, and then had ACL surgery in high school, and then an ACL surgery in college. And I went, well, that's about as close as I could get to still playing sports. And so that was like a real goal for me. I wanted to do that until organic chemistry 2. And then I went, nah, the med school doesn't sound fun at all.
Is that how you guys met? You were both pre-med?
In Ochem too.
One of my favorite storylines is when people think that Doug is you.
Right.
I really, really love that because, no offense, but you're older than Doug. But people just are like, hey, Sean, we signed my book. I just love that so
It's
much.
the best, dude.
So is that how you guys met?
It's because
Med
we're the
school?
same. We're the same exact height.
Well,
You wouldn't know it in this
okay.
podcast. I need
You
like a
wouldn't know it.
encyclopedia.
You wouldn't know it on the screen either. But
I really love that. So you guys met in
that's
med
happened to me
school.
like 4 times
I know.
at least.
Oh, yeah.
Like with the autograph in the book.
Yeah.
More times than that.
I
I'm
love
talking
that.
just like signing a copy of
how's
Attacking
your Shawn
Anxiety.
Johnson signature getting?
Yeah, how's that
It's
going?
You've been
like-
doing quite a few.
It's like perfect cursive.
Like a second grader would do it.
He has good plans for you.
Yeah.
Global senior pastor Shawn Johnson.
Have you ever as a pastor, because I have once, have you ever as a pastor went back to that, I think I could do real estate and this is really starting to suck,
Yeah.
and like really thought about doing it?
Yeah. After dinner with Cam the other night.
Saturday.
Serious. Do you?
Well, okay. Not that
Not to be a
I now want to work for Cam.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About 3 or 4 years into the church, we went on our first vacation. Someone had given us a free place to stay in, and it was this little. I'm trying to think, it wasn't Martha's Vineyard, Bald Head Island. Have you guys ever heard of Bald Head Island? I think you fly to somewhere in North Carolina and then take a ferry over to it or something.
that's
But
cool.
it's this little community, and every place comes with golf carts. There's no cars on this little island. So, anyways, we're there, and I called Scott Brugman, and I was like, "Hey, man, I've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm not built for this."
Yeah.
And I had convinced myself that I was like, "I'm the ceiling." I think it was actually somebody had sent me an email telling me I was the ceiling to the organization or something.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I thought about it, and I was like, I think they're right. And so I was like, Scott, I think I probably should quit. And so me and Jill spent like a day driving around this little golf cart. And I had convinced her, like we were doing the math, and I was like, okay, I'm this old. And if I went back to med school right now, I'd be this old, and then we do the residency. And I'm like, by this age, we'd be set.
Yeah.
And it was so serious that we decided, I think we're going to do it. And then, so later that day, we decided we're going to tell the boys.
Wow.
I don't even think Ashton was born yet, or if he was so young he wouldn't remember it. But Ethan was probably, he was little, first, second grade, something like that.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I'm gonna break it to him, but I'm gonna tell him all the good stuff. I'm gonna tell him like we won't be poor anymore. And
kind of a good news, bad news thing.
So I was telling him all the things, and I was like, so what do you think, son? Like, what would you think if Dad became a doctor? And me and Jill were so interested to hear his little response. And he thought about it for a second. And he goes, well, if you're a doctor, then who's going to tell people about Jesus? And I'm driving this golf cart going, I don't know, maybe I won't be a doctor anymore. But yeah, I really, really thought about it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then
cool.
one other time, it was 100% some emails that we got about how much I sucked at my job.
Is that when Chad went to fight the guy?
That was a different one. That was another
The
pastor. Mhm.
Yes, I love that story.
We were sitting in our staff meeting, which was about 5 of us, and I told a story about a pastor who had reached out to me. He took me to lunch and then said some pretty mean things about the church in general.
And then he took you to lunch to say that.
He did.
Yeah.
He took me to lunch to scold me.
Cool.
And so I was just telling the guys, and it was about 5 minutes later, and Chad just goes, oh gosh, I totally forgot. I got to take care of something. And he just gets up and leaves. And we're like, Chad. And so then we keep doing the meeting, and he shows back up about 45 minutes later. And he's real how he would get real splotchy? Remember he would get those splotches when he would get,
Oh yeah.
He's real red and splotchy, and he sits down all like, he goes, what'd you do? Nothing. And come to find out, he left the table, drove to the church, went to go, I don't know, fight the pastor, confront him at least. And luckily the guy wasn't in his office.
Shout out to Chad.
Yeah, shout out to Chad. We love you, Chad.
That's incredible. Wow. Ryan, would you do something else?
You know what mine is? My mind always thinks in Pixar movies.
Yeah.
And I think
like that.
I would really love to write screenplays.
That's a
for
great
Pixar.
one. Nice.
Your imagination is always cartoons.
So I see you guys right now
Yeah.
as Pixar characters
Yeah.
talking. No, I just always think about for whatever reason, plots for stories, but Pixar stories for some reason.
Cool.
So
That's great.
I guess I would go
You got some great ideas.
work for Pixar.
I was going to plug a few of them, but I don't want Johnny Pixar to be listening
Right?
and stealing.
I know,
they're
he's always
they're always
listening,
listening
man.
to this for
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah.
Okay. I would do something in sports, probably.
Yeah.
Sports broadcast is where I wanted to go. That or working for the UT athletic department or something like that. I'd love a job like that.
Or like a Sunday Conversations, Caleb Presley style interview
Well,
show.
yeah, I'm kind of doing that now, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that I'm in
Did
with
you
those
text
guys.
Caleb
Probably
this morning?
do stand-up comedy,
Yeah.
since Shane and I are close.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe I'll do that on the side. Could you ask another question, but just to Shawn? Because otherwise we're just going to do this. It'll take us 30 minutes. The three of us.
We just talk too much.
Yeah.
I could see you in the sports broadcasting.
Right?
Yeah.
Like one of the most entertaining parts of watching almost any Nuggets game, right? Or in the past
RIP.
is just our text back and forth because
He's
I get
so
his
good at it.
commentary throughout the game.
Yeah.
And
I'd have to rein it in if I was publicly saying things
Yeah.
about sports, but
You know what you'd be great at is the guy on College Game Day that they cut away to a couple of times, and you're out in the
Doing
crowd
segments
with
and-
all
yeah.
the students.
That'd be
yeah,
fun.
exactly.
I'd love
and you're
Oh,
getting
yeah.
everybody going.
Yeah.
You'd be great at the field goal kick.
Pat
you know?
McAfee,
Yes.
that kind of life would be in. I've always said
Yeah.
he has the job I
Ethan,
want.
when you're done crowd surfing, we've got a question for you.
Exactly.
Hanging
Wow,
out
this
with
is- this is
College
nice.
Game Day.
Encouragement for Ethan. This
Or
is a
the-
nice segment.
Or the GM for the Colorado Rockies.
Oh,
You would be good
man.
at that.
That would be. I would.
Scotty
love to do
Scheffler
that.
has more wins in May than the Rockies. Is that correct?
Yeah, he won more or the same amount.
The same amount.
The Rockies just got their first series win in the last 22 series they played. They just finally won a series.
Didn't they just lose 21-0?
recent? Yeah, in April, I think, to the Padres.
So
They're
bad.
historically the worst team ever. It's wild.
Oh.
Let's
But
move on.
You
Anyways,
still have the
I'm
hat.
upset.
We'll never remove the hat.
It's gonna make me
Never
mad all
from
over
on
again.
top of the couch.
All right,
Kayla, would you ask
question for
Shawn a question?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's taking so long.
Yeah,
here.
my bad. Just getting
get
really
to it.
tongue tied.
Come
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
Poor Kayla.
Do my I do my best.
If you break something.
Okay, Shawn, what do you do for fun? Like, what sounds fun to you, and how do you like? Because I know that ministry is great, but it can also be a lot. And so, what do you do for fun?
Right now, what I do for fun is I'm doing some boxing, and I love that. A good friend of mine, shout out Mark Montoya.
Shout out to Mark.
He is a UFC coach in Denver, and so I go train with him on a weekly basis, and he lets me train in the octagon, so I pretend the whole time I'm actually a UFC fighter.
Of course.
And so I love doing that. That's one of the things I do. And then just honestly, most of my free time right now is watching Ashton play basketball. So me and Jill are at many tournaments. This summer we'll be out of town multiple. Whenever I'm not speaking this summer, I'll be in a tournament somewhere, following him somewhere around the Midwest.
He's got so many games.
So many.
Oh, it's unreal.
The amount of times you text me, oh, sorry, I'm at Ashton's game right now.
He had
And it's like-
four this weekend. So
It's like three. He's got 3 games this evening. Like,
Yeah.
remember how tired you were after 1 game? Imagine playing 3 in a single night.
Yeah.
So I go to a lot of basketball.
And sometimes come to Austin for fun.
And when I really want to laugh, I come here.
Yes.
What if you were in a UFC fight?
Yes.
What's your walkout song?
Oh, Eminem for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy.
I don't actually know the
Easy.
title, but it's
Lose yourself?
that's it.
Yeah.
Is that the one that starts out with "You only get one shot"?
Yep.
Do not miss your moment.
Oh,
You only get one shot.
Or is that a different song?
No,
Lose
that's Lose Yourself.
By
Yeah.
Eminem.
Lose yourself in the minute.
If you had one shot,
and
one, yeah.
you better never
Lose
let
yourself.
it go.
Yeah, lose
Oh,
yourself.
Yeah.
And one
you only get
moment.
one shot. Do not
Would you
miss your chance
capture
to
it?
blow.
What song would
or
you
just
walk out
let it
to?
slip?
Vomit on the sweater already.
Probably
Mom's
Why Can't
spaghetti.
We Be Friends?
But he's nervous. He the calm
Just
and
to
ready
throw
to
him
drop
off.
bombs.
Why can't
He
we
keeps on
be
forgetting what he
friends?
wrote down.
Why
The whole
can't
crowd
we
rose so
be
loud. He
friends?
opens his mouth,
Why
but the
can't
words won't
we
come out.
be
He's
friends?
choking out. Everybody's choking now.
The clock's run up.
Over
Time's
now.
over.
Get back to
Yeah.
Is YouTube gonna flag this video? Because that sounded just like the
like
song.
Eminem.
Just like it.
Doug, do you have a song you'd walk out to
No.
for a fight? No. Wouldn't do it.
Doug just walks out to silence.
I do,
He just wants the crowd to be silent.
Yeah.
I've got a new,
Nobody
I've
says
got a new
anything.
song for
Okay.
a walkout that I would use. It's called Narco, and there's like a trumpet. It's like a Latin type trumpet sound. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like a party song.
Yep.
It's super cool.
It's a good song.
The
I
only-
also have always thought this: what if a guy came out for a fight to silence?
Yeah.
Be wild.
No song. The entire place goes quiet, and then he just walks out, and there's no sound.
It might
That'd
make
be
him
eerie.
look scary.
Exactly.
Didn't
Mhm.
Mike Tyson do that in the Jake Paul
No, there was all kinds
deal?
of.
The
That
Tyson
was the
walkouts
worst
used to be
fight.
the best.
Because I remember,
towel
I'm probably
cutting.
wrong. I remember Jake had like this whole epic
He was
thing.
on a car
and then
and
I
stuff.
feel like Mike just walked out on his own.
Mike might not have known he was there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Correct.
Yes.
Any anything else, Kayla?
Got one more.
Hit me.
Okay. Our word for the year is more.
Yes.
And so, what have you seen God do more of this year?
Oof.
I've cried more. And I didn't even think that was possible.
Are you dehydrated all the time?
that is,
why
that
you're
is the
drinking
best
water.
self-description Sean's ever given is means well, cries a lot. Shawn Johnson.
Means well, cries a lot.
That's true, dude. You mean so well.
That's good.
Thank you. Yes, so many things, but we were just able to share some stats with the church, and between what's going on in Denver and here and a couple other places, we had about almost 40,000 people in
Gosh.
person. The largest Easter we've ever had in the history of Red Rocks Church.
Yeah.
I think in the last 12 months there was like almost 8,000 or 9,000 salvations, and just things that we never thought possible. And so, yeah, I do. I often, honestly, every weekend, I think I stand in the back of a room at one of the locations and just go, oh my gosh, how do I get to be a part of this?
Yeah.
Why did God let us experience all of this? And then, what's happening here is every bit as exciting. Like, I mean, you guys have to have that same feeling. You have to stand in the back of the room and just go, what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
And then you look at the parking lots and the people, and it's crazy.
amazing.
So
It's hard to process. I
Yeah,
feel like I
it is.
can't.
Yeah.
I don't have the capacity to take it all in and process it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
It's
Well,
unbelievable.
I got some questions for you about relationships because we're talking relationships right now at church.
Hmm.
But first, want to give a little preview. You have something exciting happening later this year.
Yes.
You tell us just tell us what you can.
Coming out with a new book.
Let's go.
It's called Kiss the Fire. And the tagline is 7 ways to get back up when you want to give up. And
Come on.
the one and only Ryan Wekenman has helped me write it, which really means I say things into a microphone and then he writes it in a way that makes it look like I understand the English language.
Yeah. And
You guys are a
he's-
good team.
He's downplaying this. He says it and you communicate so well and efficiently. And the transitions, I watch your mind as you're doing it, and he'll just like say an entire chapter in 20 minutes and I'll blink and be like, it's unbelievable what you can do, man.
I remember when you were here last year, I think, when you guys were doing workshopping all day, and then we all met up for dinner after, and just like you described me being so excited meeting Shane Gillis and those guys, that's how you guys were coming out of that. Like we just got it. Like we locked this thing in.
That was special.
It was
Pretty cool.
crazy. We did something that I've heard of a few people doing. I didn't think we could do. I mean, we wrote the bulk of the book in one day.
Yeah.
Now, it was months of putting together notes and thoughts and ideas and all that stuff, but we put 12 pieces of
That's right.
that butcher paper around this in this hotel room, and every one was a chapter. And so we went, okay, I had a list of 17 stories that I wanted to share in the book. So then we assigned stories to every chapter, and then we knew the scripture we wanted for each chapter. And then, he was recording it and typing, and I would walk around the room and just talk for a chapter.
That's cool.
And then we'd get done. Oftentimes we were both crying.
Yeah, dude.
It was fine. We're good. And then we'd drink a Red Bull and go, chapter 2.
That's awesome.
But after about, it was a long day, 10 or 12 hours or something, but we left going, I
had a
think
book.
we just wrote a book.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
It's so, I haven't cried this much. We were laughing about this last night. I haven't cried as much as I have in the last year in my entire life. Like, it's just so powerful and so moving and so important and so real. And you pull no punches, and the world needs to hear it.
Would you
So I
mind
can't
sharing
wait.
why it's called Kiss the Fire, where that comes from?
And none at all. So a few years ago, I was having some pain in my neck, but then also like down my left arm. It was like getting numb, and I had went wakeboarding with some guys in my small group, and I had snapped this bicep tendon wakeboarding. Have you ever wakeboarded where like they're pulling the rope out and it's sort of all curvy and it like gets caught in the wake? And they'll gas it, but there was slack in the line. So I was holding on and he gassed it. And when the slack came out, like I just heard this, and I'm like, I let go of the rope and they came back around. They're like, you want to go again? I'm like, no, something's wrong.
How many surgeries have you had?
Oh my gosh, so many. I don't want to talk about it.
What do you do when you go to a doctor and they ask you for your medical history? Do you give them all the surgeries, or do you?
I honestly don't.
No.
It's such a long, boring list. I'm like, it doesn't matter.
Whatever.
So anyways, I was doing rehab for that, and my hand was shaking a little bit. And so for a couple of months, the doctor was like, "Oh, that's just your arm's been in a brace for 6 weeks. It's atrophy." And so, but it stayed around. And so one day, the physical therapist was like, "Maybe you should go see a neurologist." And that made no sense to me. But I was like, "Okay." And so I made an appointment. They did some scans. And I was talking with my counselor, actually, Harv, who I've mentioned many times. Shout out Harv, Kayla. Can we add him to my list?
Of course.
And he's like, well, hey, are you getting those results tomorrow? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, is Jill going with you? And I was like, no. And he's like, maybe Jill should go with you. And what I found out is they all kind of had an idea that it could be serious, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So I went into this office and I honestly thought he was going to tell me I had a pinched nerve. And he told us that I had an incurable brain disease, and they didn't know exactly what it was, but what they thought it could be, you might have 7 years to live. Like it was one of those things where, I've heard stories of people going, my life changed, in a doctor's appointment. You just never think that's going to happen to you. And so it was bad. Like I remember sitting there going, I asked him, I said, well, what's like worst case scenario? No, I said, what's best case scenario? Because he was telling me what he thought. I go, what's best case scenario? And he goes, that we find lung cancer. And I went, wait, what? And he's like, well, at least that could explain some of the symptoms, and at least it would give us something to fight. He's like, what I think it is, it's incurable and you can't fight it.
Jeez.
And so just rocked, and me and Joe go out to the parking lot of this hospital, and I'm just a wreck, and I'm crying, shocker. And I remember telling her, I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know how this is going to affect you and the boys, and she just looks at me like she always does, and she goes, I'm not scared, and I'm not going anywhere. And she literally reaches back, grabs her Bible, and starts reading me passages. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, praying for a miracle, because that's what we need.
Come on.
Wow.
So while she was doing pretty well with it, I was just rocked. And it's funny because we were doing the fast for the church, and I stopped at the gas station and got a box of Krispy Kremes.
Fast is over.
I was like, forget this.
Yeah.
And I went home.
Understood. Yes.
And I just sat on my back porch for a few hours, and I was mad at God. I was cussing at God, then apologizing for cussing, then yelling some more. And then I just would sit there, and my phone just started ringing. Jill probably told one person, pray for Shawn, and that went, how it just, all of a sudden my phone's just going crazy. And for a whole night, I wouldn't talk to anyone. I didn't even have the energy to text back the little like smiley face, just nothing. And Mark Montoya. So Kayla, when you said, what I love doing, I box. One of the reasons I'm boxing is because it's really good. It's a really good way of fighting back against what's happening in my brain. And so, but he called, and he's a UFC coach, and I told him the diagnosis, and he's got what he calls outlaw logic. He's got all these sayings that he's been telling his fighters over the years, and they all sound awesome, but sometimes need explaining.
Yeah.
And so I told him about the diagnosis, and he just went, he goes, we're going to kiss this fire and walk away whistling. Yeah. And I remember going, Coach, that sounds good. What's that mean? And he goes, look, I'm not saying it's not going to be hot. I'm not saying this isn't going to be hard. I'm saying we're going to get through this, and it's not going to change your joy, and it's not going to take your peace, and it's not going to change your calling, and it's not going to change who you are. Yeah. It's not going to change what God's plans are for you. You're going to get through this, and I want to be with you every step of the way. And then he said it again, we're going to kiss this fire and walk away whistling. And so that's where the title of the book came. And so it's called Kiss the Fire. Yeah.
That's coming out in October.
Coming out October 14th.
I'll
actually we'll be doing a series on it at church. I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to go with our worship team on a 3-week tour. The week before, the week of, and the week after. And we're going to do a combined worship book release tour in I think 10 or 15 different cities.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so Kiss the Fire, it's really this idea of I'm just not going to run away from what's in front of me, and I'm not going to throw in the towel. That God has hardwired a fighter spirit on the inside of me. I'm going to face this thing and hopefully be locking arms with some other people who will push me closer to God, but I'm going to walk through it.
Yeah.
And so that's the concept.
Dude, that's going to speak so loudly. I mean, the concept is powerful in itself, but the lived reality that you're doing that as you're writing this book is going to speak to so many people, whatever their battles that they're facing. So we're pumped.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. We'll be promoting that and reminding people when it's getting closer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Cool. All right, let's talk relationships. You and Jill, you said 26 years.
Yep, got married when we were 15.
Right. You guys were in school together. You're right.
Of course. Yes. OChem too.
Right after med school.
Shawn failed it.
Doug,
I tried to help him.
You passed that, didn't you? Wow. But look at you now.
Yeah.
Look at you now in your taller suit.
I always tell people you would never guess it, but Doug was actually very smart in his day. Like in college, he was brilliant guy, passing those classes, and you just wouldn't know. But
a great cheater. I was so good at it. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, Mom.
Good. Thanks for clearing that up. Okay, so you've been married to Jill with an amazing family and story. Not that you guys haven't gone through ups and downs, of course, but one question I want to ask you, because there's a lot of people who, like you, who didn't have that modeled for them. You didn't grow up with like a Christian, typical Christian parenting life. Yeah. How did you learn or build that foundation with Jill when you didn't have that modeled for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, it was, I think, being around the church nonstop. Because I didn't have, I couldn't look at a parenting situation and go, that's what I want to I want to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I didn't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Asking for help. I remember first time Ethan was about to take. They had everyone. I don't know if they do this here, but in Colorado in 5th grade, whether your child is ready for it or not, they do growing and changing class.
Oh yeah.
And so they're going to talk about the birds and the bees.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of know, if I want to tell my kid, I got to tell him before this date.
Yep.
And so I was always like, I can't. My parents didn't do anything like that. I don't know how to do this. And so I remember for that, I called Gary Brugman.
Yes.
And I was like, Gary, what do I do? And he gave me the best advice though. And
Love it.
He's like, because I was like, hey, I'm going to talk to my son about sex and all this stuff. And
Did he make any jokes about it?
well, of course he did. It's Gary Brugman.
just out of curiosity.
Probably
and then
probably said a few things.
you know
I'm
what
not
he
going to
did?
say that to myself.
He made the joke and then went, no, oh, you can't say
Don't
that.
tell me.
I should've said that. That's so
Don't
bad.
tell Eunice.
Yeah.
Don't tell Eunice.
And
I
just to
said
tie these things together, if you've been paying attention, Gary's son is Chad, who went to fight the pastor who ripped
Yes.
the shot.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
Full circle.
This is a heck of a family.
Yeah.
Some of the best
They're the
people in
best,
the world.
Yeah. So call and ask for advice. And honestly, he gave me some of the best advice. I'll never forget it that day. He goes, start by asking questions. Because when you ask questions, you'll know what he knows.
Right.
And then you'll know at what level to sort of approach this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, but I'm still doing that today. Like, because really, no matter how old your kids are, you're always parenting a child that age for the first time.
Mm.
And so I actually had a question for parenting one of my older kids just last month. And me and Jill were in the car and we got Pastor Craig Groeschel on speakerphone. And I went, Pastor Craig, what do I do? And so being around people who want to be good parents, who want to have a good marriage, who love God, and then just using those resources has been super helpful for
That's
us.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Switching gears, but you can think of your boys
Yeah.
in this framework, or I guess the two older ones right now. We got a singles conference coming up here.
I hear.
A lot
Come
of
on,
singles,
baby.
A lot of singles in this church. What's the advice you're giving them, or that you would give to someone that's in the dating world right now? There's all kinds of craziness with apps and all this stuff. What would you say to somebody that's navigating dating, trying to meet somebody, wants to get married and have a marriage like the one you and Jill have, of two people who love God and love each other?
Yeah. Gosh, so much. I think first I would say, don't just clap in church when people say, let's put God first and trust God, but actually try to do that. Because he really does do more than you can ever ask, think, or imagine. I was reading Jeremiah this week, and the famous Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Well, the 2 verses after it almost define how to see that. And the 2 verses after it talk about, are you putting God first? Are you chasing him down? Are you seeking him with all your heart? Because when you do, I know the plans I have for you.
Right.
And so, I did I'll try to manufacture, I'll try to put myself in the right places. Now, we didn't have dating apps, so I just had to go out every single night. And we did. We had to actually look. But I was trying so hard to manufacture a relationship. As I look back on my single life, what I now realize is I never understood who I was in Christ, and I was always really insecure. I had a pretty dysfunctional, upbringing. And so I never really felt loved or valued or wanted necessarily in life. And so what I now realize as I look back is like, I always wanted a girlfriend, not because I enjoyed dating or needing to buy someone flowers in February. I always wanted a girlfriend because somehow that made me feel like, well, at least somebody wants me.
Right.
At least somebody thinks I'm valuable. At least, I was always looking for some sort of security because I didn't feel like I was getting it in life, and I didn't feel like I got it from my parents. And so single right now, I would say, believe God when he says, I got a plan for you. Believe him when he says, if you'll put me first, you'll see that plan. But then also, like, maybe remind yourself on a daily basis, hourly if necessary, I don't need to date someone to be wanted or loved or called or chosen. When I put my faith in Jesus, I'm already those things. If you go date from this platform of, I'm just looking for someone to validate me, I just want to feel wanted, I want someone to say, I love you. I want someone, well, the bar that you set for what you're looking for ends up by default being pretty low, because what I'm really looking for is physical attraction and just make me feel validated.
Mm.
When you start on a different level, when you can start dating from the level of, I don't need you to tell me that I'm valued. I already know I am. Like Jesus paid the ultimate price for me.
Yeah.
Value is assessed by what someone will pay. Jesus paid the ultimate price for me. My value's through the roof. I'm already wanted. I'm already chosen. I'm already loved. I'm already enough. Now, what I'm looking for in someone to date, the bar's way higher. So now I'm going to go, I actually can look for character and integrity. And do I want my kids someday to treat people like that? Do I want my kids someday to pursue God like that?
Yeah.
Do I want, right? Because now I'm not just looking for physical attraction and validation. Physical attraction, I always think's got to be there, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
But now there's just so many more things I can focus on because I don't need you for validation. That was one of the sexiest things to me about Jill when we started dating. She was the first girl I ever dated that did not need me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every other girl I dated, I kind of knew my words are so important to her. The way I can make her feel is changing her life.
Right.
When I started dating Jill, it was weird because I was like, she doesn't actually need me. This is a little scary. Because she was very secure of who she was in Christ.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so man, trust God, put him first, remember who you are in Christ. And then, don't settle for less than sold out for Jesus.
Yeah, because that moment of walking out of a doctor's office with the diagnosis and getting to your truck, we all have some version of that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
One day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what's the kind of person that you want sitting in the truck next to you? Like
And you don't
in that
picture those
moment,
days, right?
Right. Yeah.
What you think of is in the right now, he or she's cute.
Yeah.
And in the right now, they make me feel better about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll get her done.
Right.
So good.
And it
man.
just won't.
It won't.
Yeah.
Because life will happen, and it won't happen the same for everybody, but it will. And cute won't stay by your side during hard times and pray for miracles.
Wait. Say more about that.
I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, when I was single, again, if you'll show me some validation and if you're cute, like, there's a real chance for us.
I see.
Right. But 23 years into marriage and a really tough diagnosis.
Yeah.
You want to be doing life with somebody who says, I'm not scared. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm praying for a miracle.
Come on.
Yeah. There's such an importance too, I think, to what you're saying of both of you being sold out for Jesus, because there's just different eras where one person's going to have to carry a little more weight than the other.
Sure.
We were just talking before this, you told us a really cool story about a couple that was navigating one of them being a believer, one of them not being a believer. Can you speak to that? Because there's people in our church, I think it's good in two regards. There's people in our church that's their reality. They're, on different pages with faith with their spouse. And then there's people who are in the dating world who could compromise and end up in a marriage like that.
Yep.
So tell a little bit about that story.
Yeah. So I guess if we go in order, I do always encourage dating people to, make a list of what you're looking for. It's funny because I've actually heard some friends of mine do messages where they're like, rip up the list. And I'm like, whatever, bro. I said mine first. It's like, I can't go to the grocery store without a list if I'm hungry. Right? Because I might know I need steak and vegetables. But if I go hungry and no list, I come home with a cart of Little Debbie's. And while that will be, while the Little Debbie's will be fun for about 5 minutes, long term, it's not good for me. And that's how a lot of people date. They go to they're shopping hungry without knowing what they really want and need.
Yes.
And so you kind of leave with things that probably aren't always good for you long term. And so when I'm telling people to make a list, I always end with, make sure they're sold out for Jesus. Like that's what you're looking for. And honestly, God's word's very clear about it. He's like, don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers. And he's not saying that to take away 75% of your options. He's not saying that to be a killjoy. He's saying that because he knows life happens. But forget tragedy. He knows he's got a plan for you in your life. And if you connect yourself to somebody that's just going in a different direction, or is just going to kind of be dead weight. He knows that there will be plans in your life that you'll miss out on because of who you decide to do life with. And so it's so important to if I'm trying to live for Jesus and I'm single, I can't settle for less than sold out for Jesus, because it'll affect everywhere you go. But there are so many people that it's like, well, I wasn't in church, I wasn't a Christian, I never even heard of that, right? I'm just now married, I'm in that situation. Or like my situation was, my mom was a drug addict when she had me and married a drug dealer. And then later in life, she gave her life to God, but he didn't. And so there's this, so it is difficult. Like I watched, I can't imagine being in the married scenario, but just watching it even as a child, it changes everything in a relationship. Because if you really do sell out for Jesus, which is what we talk about on a weekly basis, well, that's going to affect how you parent, how you do finances, how you raise kids, how you handle tough situations, how you do your taxes. Like there's nothing it won't affect. And so you got two people, one person sold out for Jesus and one person not. There's a lot of friction. And so I've always felt really bad even talking to the church about things like don't be unequally yoked and look for sold out for Jesus kind of stuff, knowing there's so many people, probably hundreds or maybe even sometimes thousands of people that are watching or listening that are just already in that boat. And it always has been tough for me because I'm like, what do I tell them? And it was so cool. I was walking out of the Littleton campus 2 weeks ago, and this couple came up to me, Jim and Aaron, and they actually gave me permission to share their story. But they're pretty emotional. We were hugging. They were telling me, hey, we're moving to another state, and God's got these plans for us. And this is our last week at Red Rocks. And but then we just started talking about life. And I found out in this conversation, they had been married for 18 years, and she was a Christian, and he was not. And she got emotional, and she's like, it was so difficult. So many hard situations, so many hard seasons. And then she said, but he just gave his life to God recently. He just got baptized at our last baptism. We now have a calling together as a couple that we are chasing down to go change the world. And we have so much purpose. Our family's never been tighter. And like now we're all crying. And I said, Aaron, it's so ironic that this timing, I'm actually talking about this next week. Like, what would you tell people that are in that situation? You've lived it for 18 years. And she said, I never stopped praying. She said, I just would literally get on my knees and pray almost every day for my husband. She said, I never stopped loving him. I never stopped serving him. But then she said, I also, though, never stopped going to church, and I never stopped being in a small group.
Wow.
And she said that community was really, really life-saving. And then she started laughing, and she goes, I even host small groups at our house just so he'd have to be around it. And then she said, I would just tell people in that situation, don't you dare give up. Don't stop believing, because God does things that you can't fathom even being possible. And she said, here's what was interesting. She said, now that he's saved, baptized, we're on this journey together, he's now admitted, oh, God's been working on me for years. I just didn't want to tell you. Right? And so you just don't know what God's doing in the life of your spouse. And so while you can't save them, you can love them and serve them and still just keep chasing down God and stay in community that's good for yourself in that process. And that's what she did. And she's like, God did a miracle.
That's awesome.
Wow.
I love that story. People need that story of hope, because I think there's a lot of stories also of one spouse was strong in their faith when they got married, but over time they kind of let it go. It's easier and probably makes sense logically sometimes to like, I'm just not going to go to church this week. I'm not going to sign up for a group. And you start to give up some of those pieces of your faith, and eventually you become more like your spouse and lose a lot of that relationship with God. So we need more encouraging stories like that, because it's not easy, for someone to stick with that for 18 years and be faithful and keep going to church when they don't have a spouse in that with them. But the fruit is awesome.
I have a few people close to me in my life who are in that exact situation, who over the last month have had conversations where they need that encouragement right now, wondering if it's possible. And so that's very inspiring. That's cool timing that they just came up to you 2 weeks ago and shared that.
Yeah, it was great.
I think that's timely for so many people in our church at the moment.
When you and Jill first met, you're dating Did you do premarital counseling or anything
We
like that?
did.
What's the best and worst advice you got relationship wise?
Oh, start with the worst.
Well, we actually, so the church we were at in Illinois, we had to do premarital counseling, and it had to be with the senior pastor.
Oh, good.
And so after our premarital counseling, he actually said, as best I can tell, you guys shouldn't get married.
Really?
Whoa. 100%. And
Here's my analysis.
and
It's a no.
yes.
Dang.
Wow.
And so we were like, wow, that's tough to take.
How old were you?
25,
Okay.
26.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dude.
All right. That's hard.
And so, we disagreed.
Did you guys end up getting married?
We did.
Okay,
We
cool.
actually did.
Spoiler.
Yeah.
I don't actually.
That's what I
even-
told Ethan and Steph when I did their premarital counseling too.
Well, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
we had Doug do our premarital counseling. We got married the same
I got
summer.
married 3 months before him, so I was like, "Hey, let
man,
me
teach me
help you out here."
everything.
Sorry, Steph.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
What was his reason? Like, you thought you were a
I-
knucklehead or what?
I-
couldn't have been Jill. so-
No, it definitely wasn't Jill.
Right.
I think it might have been that maybe he didn't feel like I had been a believer long enough,
Huh.
or I don't really remember. I also, couldn't have more polar opposite backgrounds.
Sure.
Right.
And I think that was hard for him to wrap his mind around, because she had grown up in church, has served God her whole life. Annoyingly so. And I say that with joking, but like I remember one time we were dating, and I asked her, I was like, "Have you ever cussed?" And her answer was, she goes, "I did once in the mirror, just to see what it would sound like." And I'm like, we can't be together. I think he's right. Like,
In the mirror is
so
great.
like
It's like a private moment. Just her.
Oh,
That's
man.
incredible.
our
Gosh.
first like big fight was right before we got married. And I got very mad about something, and my voice was raised, and I don't think I've ever called her a cuss word or anything like that, but I have said some cuss words in anger in the middle of a thing. And I remember I said a cuss word in the middle of being very upset, and she just looks at me and she goes, and there's just this one little tear. I mean, it's like a movie. It's just put this in your Pixar. It's just this one little tear comes like this. She doesn't yell back. She doesn't raise her voice. She just goes, and then she just goes, "Well, I just wish when you got upset you would talk to me nicer."
Oh.
And that's such a crushing blow. I'd have rather she hit me with a crowbar.
Yeah, dude.
You know what I mean?
Me and Sam have the same story, just roles reversed.
yeah,
I just kind of look at her and
that is the more painful response. It reminds me of one time Steve-O was about to do some crazy bit, and he's like, they brought up his dad. He's like, "Yeah, my dad told me he's not mad at me for this stuff, but he is disappointed." And that's just so much worse.
So much worse.
Yeah.
So much worse.
So good.
wow.
So I think the bad advice we got was don't get married. I didn't love that.
Yeah.
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 We still go to marriage counseling 26 years in, not all the time, but often. And we got some great advice recently. Our counselor was talking about how our hearts need hydrated was his language. Did you talk about this in a message, or had we talked about this? and
We
you were
talked
thinking
about, because I did a similar concept,
That's
but
right.
just the piggy banks
That's
instead
right.
of the plants.
Yeah. And so, and he was like, our hearts are they're like a plant. You can't just water it once and then walk away and hope 8 years later it's still hydrated.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, so he basically had me and Jill do this exercise, and this was really great. He had us individually write down, "I most feel loved by you when you," and then make a list. "I most feel loved by you when you say this, do this," whatever it is. And we made a list, and then she made a list. And then a week later, we went on a date and went to a real fancy restaurant, little candlelight, the whole deal.
Yeah.
And then we shared our lists with each other and then gave each other the lists. And so it's really insightful, because sometimes you forget the little
good.
things that really
Yeah.
communicate to your spouse. Kind of back to the love languages thing a little bit, but
That's good.
I forget some of the little things.
Yeah.
Like, dude, carrying the trash and doing the dishes tells my wife that I love her. And I'm like, I got you a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
And she's, in her mind, she's like, I don't need another pair of shoes. And so it was really cool. It was a fun reminder that there are just certain things that I can do and say that really make her feel loved. And now I actually have a list on my phone. And so every now and then I'll just pull out that list and go, I'm just going to surprise her. Oh, I'm going to hit her out of nowhere with that one today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
and so I thought that was great advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Steph, if you're listening, just start making that list. I'll make mine. Any questions you guys have before we wrap up? We got Shawn in the building, so
I do think for my final shout out of the day, since we're doing that, we just need to shout out Jill. As the whole time you're talking, I keep thinking about both of the last two books, Attacking Anxiety and Kiss the Fire. So many moments of you being in such a difficult place, and she is this like unsung hero in every single one of the chapters. It's like you don't write about her much, but she's always right there. And she's like this silent strength for you, who's always praying and always being there and always keeping you in the, and I was just thinking in like in a whole new way for me today, as you're sharing, like she is the hero, one of the heroes of Red Rocks Church.
Agree.
No doubt.
Agree.
And so just shout out to Jill.
Shout out to Jill.
Well
Jill,
said.
thank you for everything you do.
Man. Because we've heard from a lot of people that it's actually her dream too to be on the Afterthoughts podcast.
We are gonna extend the invitation.
Of course.
Formally inviting you, Jill,
the
to
invitation
be on this podcast.
has always been there and always will be. Just love you and grateful for you, man. Thank you for your leadership. And so much of what we get to do in Austin is, happening because of your open hands and lack of micromanaging here, because you just give so much trust and freedom, but also you challenge us and you're in our corner, and you always got our backs for everything. And the day that we decided to call you and talk about the idea of starting a Red Rocks church instead of doing our own thing was one of probably the most important and greatest decisions that we have ever made. And I've never been more, every week that goes by, I'm more and more grateful that we somehow get to build the same thing and the Red Rocks family. And so just thank you for your trust. Thank you for believing in us and having our backs. And hope we're in your corner with everything. So we love you, man. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
I got one last question for you.
Yes.
And it's kiss the fire mentality, but your life is so interesting to me because someone could glance at you and see like, man, that guy's got it. Like he's a pastor of a growing big church and he's got an amazing, beautiful family and all that. But also they actually got to know you. It like feels like the more you talk about your life, like everything has worked against you in a way. Like the childhood you grew up in and the people that have doubted you and the pastors that have ripped into you, a diagnosis, anxiety, all these different things that the enemy has thrown at you, but you keep getting back up and throwing more punches. How, like, to someone today that's listening, that's like, that's how my life feels. Like everything comes against me and I just feel like I'm running out of strength to keep fighting. Like, how do you keep going?
Great question. The one of the funny behind the scenes things with Kiss the Fire is the publisher, because Attacking Anxiety did okay, they came to me and were like, hey, would you write another book? And I was like, no, I'm just not interested. And we kept talking, and I said, honestly, if I were to talk about anything right now, the only thing that I concentrate on almost on a daily basis is how to not give up. And I was like, so if I were to write about anything, all I would do is just like write a book on like sermons I need to hear. And that's really how Kiss the Fire got started. And so how do I do it? I don't know. It's one step at a time, one day at a time, all the things. I've just learned over the years that there's something powerful that God does with people who will just stay in the fight, in whatever it is. When it's something they know that He's calling them to. It's so easy today, even in church world. You know how many times you hear probably a month of, well, God told us. And it's kind of like you're playing spades and you just throw down the ace. And you're like, well, I can't do anything with that. Like, what do you say?
Right.
God told me. And it seems like God tells people to leave hard situations a lot more these days than He does to stay in them.
Totally.
And there have been several times, 5 or 6 that were real over the 20 years that we were going to just walk away from being the pastors of Red Rocks, for instance, because things got really hard. Yep. And this past January, the team got one of those party buses, actually. It was like a van limo, and picked me and Jill up at our house on Sunday morning of our 20th anniversary. And we had already recorded the service, and they just took us to all the locations in Denver. And we just stood in the lobbies and like hugged people and took pictures and heard stories.
Yeah.
And I went home with this just like this crazy purpose-filled, almost joy in the middle of the storm thing. And me and Jill were just talking about like, you don't get that feeling when you give up. You just don't. And so I've just learned there's just enough times in my life where I've wanted to, and then I'll go back and look at it 5 years later and go, my gosh, thank God I didn't, because look what he did because we didn't give up.
Yeah.
And so I keep chasing that. I keep going, yeah, this one's tough and it's not ideal.
Yeah.
But I know that if I keep walking as honorably as I can, and for me, that's just admitting brokenness a lot.
Right.
There will be a time when I'll look back even on this season of life and go, you know, thank God I didn't give up. Ryan knows because I share a lot of them with him, but still weekly, we get many messages of people talking about the Attacking Anxiety book. And I read one in church a year or so ago, but it was from a mom, and she had this, I think her daughter was somewhere around 10 years old or something like that. And, you know, she came to her mom, and long story short is she came to her mom and said, I've been thinking about taking my own life, Mom, but I'm not going to, because I read this book. Sorry, locked up. And she goes, somebody else knows how I feel.
Yeah.
And there's something to walking through tough times in life that when you do get to the other side, which God always gets you there, that then you are armed with this sort of, you know, it's almost like the Boy Scout things, or like
Badges,
a resume, or like just open up your vest and it's like all the secret weapons. But it's like, I now am armed with the ability to tell somebody, I know what that's like, and God gets you through it. And you can't do that when you walk away when times get tough.
Yeah.
And so I look a lot towards, but if I don't give up on this one, there will be a day where I'll look back and be really glad I didn't.
Come on.
And your fight is not just for you. I think that's what you keep on being reminded of with those letters is because you don't give up, it gives other people the strength to not give up. And that, I mean, every fighter that goes into a ring, they're not fighting for themselves alone. There is a family behind that person. There is a circle of people that they are all in that fight together. And that story ends up reaching a whole lot of other people. So thank you for continuing to not give up when it would be easy to at many times. And we're honored to be in the fight with you.
Guys, I love you so much.
Love you, Shawn.
I brag on you guys and this whole Austin church behind your back all the time. I just love it. And I love you guys and just excited to see what God's doing and love being here and just laughing.
Yeah, bro.
Dude. Well, I know Ryan helped write the book, but I can do a piece for you for your book. In the back page, when it's your picture, it just says, Shawn Johnson, means well, cries a lot.
The end.
There's something to it.
That's your vibe.
Let's call the publisher.
We have some fun stuff next week. Don't forget about the singles conference. There's still a few spots left.
Couple spots.
Promo
Friday.
code Afterthoughts 20.
Yes.
You get a discount.
Yes. There you go.
A reward to all of you Afterthinkers out there. We'll be back next week with some more fun.